Hello, you lovely cups, it's the Dragon Lord here, back again with another video. Now today we're doing What If Tanjiro Was Kokushibo's Son Part 3. You guys crushed the like goal, like always. This video is also going to have a like goal. It's going to be 60 likes, so if you guys reach that, I will drop Part 4. Now, yesterday I didn't upload a video. I was busy doing other stuff, and I just couldn't record at the time. So, I apologize. As a kind of apology, I'm gonna do a stream on Saturday. Of course, there will also be a What If on Saturday, but I'm also gonna stream on Saturday. And I'm gonna do an Among Us stream, so let me know if you'd like to see that. Now, before I get into it, as always, like and subscribe if you're new around here. Leave a comment on what you think of the What If. And also, one more thing. Thank you to Myro for making the thumbnail. His link will be in the description, so if you haven't already, go check him out. Give him a like on some of his videos, and definitely do subscribe. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into it.
Yeah, you better listen. I'm bringing heat. You'll be a fan when I start rapping. Way I'll have your fucking head spinning. I'm known as spit vicious. Release bombs and go tick tick. Boom, you blown me that head missing. I'm a phenomenon. Stacking cheese like it's Parmesan. 8 different flows, call me Octomom. I'm moving fast like the Autobahn. And I'm independent, so I'm not your fucking starving like it's Ramadan. Sick, twisted, gifted. Can't copy, printed. Can't hold me down. I shape shift, I'm liquid. I killed this beat. I might get convicted. They know how I move.
Arriving at Natagumo Mountain, the four of them would look up at the mountain. Without saying much, Tanjiro started walking towards the mountain. "Let's go," he would say as a determined look came over his face, with Nezuko and Inosuke following him. "Hold on. We shouldn't be rushing into this," Zenitsu would say, scared to go into the mountain. "There might be people dying. If we don't go now, that number will only go up," Tanjiro would say, ignoring his companion's words, and continuing up the mountain. Zenitsu would follow suit as well after thinking about it for a minute, and he didn't want Nezuko to get hurt after all. Although he gets lost and can't find his way to the party. Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Inosuke find other demon slayers, one of which is named Murata. After which they find even more demon slayers. However, this time they find demon slayers that are alive and some that are walking corpses. Tanjiro would look at this sight with an angry look as he destroyed the webs holding the slayers. Inosuke would follow this up by using his 7th form, spatial awareness. Whilst he used it, a massive headless body would appear. "Nezuko will defeat the demon, and we will hold off this body," Tanjiro would say, getting in a stance. "Right," the other two would say, both doing their parts respectively, with Nezuko rushing at the mother spider, which was controlling the bodies, as Inosuke followed Tanjiro's example. With Tanjiro taking this as a rather easy challenge, he'd deflect the attacks, and eventually Inosuke would chop at the corpse's nape as it disintegrated. Nezuko would decapitate the mother spider as she used the 5th form of water breathing, as she saw that the demon surrendered, so she gave her a painless death. As she quickly grouped back up with Tanjiro and Inosuke, Murata would help the injured slayers down the mountain, which Tanjiro thanked him for. Meanwhile, Zenitsu would come face to face with the brother demon, as he got injected by the demon's poison. However, through sheer willpower and the thought of Nezuko, he used his thunder breathing, thunderclap, and flash 6-volt to defeat the demon, although this left him in a pretty bad state as he had to use breathing to stop the poison from spreading. Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Inosuke would also find their next foe, although they escaped, and in their stead the father demon would arrive, as Nezuko got launched away, which made Tanjiro worry, although he had to take this demon down first. Together with Inosuke, the two would rush at the demon. Tanjiro slashed at its arms and pinned it down. However, the demon's skin was too tough for Inosuke to cut, and he got hit in the stomach pretty badly. He got up, however, and the now transformed father demon would have to face his wrath, as he pinned down the demon's arms. Tanjiro came in and finished off the demon with a clean slash to its neck, decapitating the demon. "Inosuke, are you alright?" Tanjiro would say, running towards his companion. "I'm fine. You go to your sister, alright? I don't need your help, Kanpachiro," he would say with a confident look. and although Tanjiro knew that his body was pretty injured, he'd continue on. Shortly after, Inosuke would sit down against a tree, impressed by Tanjiro's strength. Tanjiro would catch up to his sister using her smell as a tracking method. When he arrived, however, he saw her badly injured, fighting what looked to be a child. Although when the child looked over at Tanjiro, it would reveal that he's actually Lower Moon 5 of the 12 Kizuki. Tanjiro was angry at this boy for harming his sister. "You'll pay for harming my sister," Tanjiro would say as he took a breath. "Siblings, I see. This kind of love for one sister. I'd love to have it too. So how about I take your sister for myself?" Rui would say, which scared his sister. She, however, got told to leave by Rui. However, Rui just got the face of a dumbfounded Tanjiro. "You can't just take somebody hostage and call that sibling love," Tanjiro would say as he got into a moon breath stance. "Hold on a minute. Your stance," Rui would say as he got familiarities from it. "Are you perhaps a user of moon breathing?" Rui would say as he tied Nezuko to a tree with his webs. Tanjiro would smirk. "My father's name is Michikatsu Tsujikuni, although you might know him as Kokushibo," Tanjiro would say shortly after, rushing at Rui, who was now scared for his life, as he tried running away. However, Nezuko would burn the strings that he had tied her with as she took a breath, and used her blood to make her blade red. He was now pinned between the two as he had no choice. He had to fight, as he used his red strings to form a cage around him, which Nezuko struck and burned. Tanjiro would also just slashed him, as he took another breath and changed his form. In an instant he was in front of Rui, as he spoke. "Hinokami Kagura, dance," as he slashed vertically with such tremendous force and speed that Rui couldn't even comprehend that he had been decapitated, as he started disintegrating. Tanjiro would then help his sister, who was still regenerating her wounds, although he'd place his hand on Rui's back to show his sympathy. As Giyu came walking in with a sleeping Inosuke on his back. "I assume that you took care of the demons," he'd say, looking at Tanjiro with his usual sad expression. "There's one demon remaining, although they shouldn't be that strong," Tanjiro would say with a firm expression. Nezuko, however, would get up and hug Giyu, much to his surprise. They had heard a lot about Giyu from Orokodaki, or at least Nezuko had heard a lot, and she felt really sad for him. Giyu didn't know why, but it brought tears to his eyes as he thanked her. In return, she just smiled, which warmed his heart. Although in that instant a blade would be swung at Nezuko, Giyu would be caught off guard, but Tanjiro intercepted the blade, as he actually pinned down the person who had slashed at Nezuko before they even noticed that they were pinned down. "Shinobu," Giyu would say. "You know this woman?" Tanjiro would say as he had even disarmed her. "Yes, she's a fellow pillar. Also, that was quite impressive," Giyu would say. Tanjiro had just blitzed one of the fastest pillars as if it was nothing. Could you let me go now?" Shinobu would say with a confused expression. "No," Tanjiro would say, still holding her down. His aura was frightening for everybody around him, until a girl who was around the same age as him tugged on his haori. "Please let her go," she would whisper, frightened of Tanjiro. "Brother, let her go, come on," Nezuko would say, flicking him on the forehead as he let her go. He was still holding her blade, however, as he returned it shortly after. Shinobu finally got a look at the boy's face, and she was struck. After all, Tanjiro was quite the handsome man, his aura boosting the feeling of confidence and strength. "Why'd you swing at my sister?" he'd ask. Shinobu, struggling to find an answer, just said, "Because she's a demon?" Although she was unsure of it at this point. The girl who had teary eyes was now holding Shinobu by her haori, glad that she was still alive, as she just got patted by the Hashira. Tanjiro would just point at the Demon Slayer uniform Nezuko was wearing, which confused Shinobu even more. However, a crow would come and tell them that Nezuko and Tanjiro were to be brought back to HQ. "Have all the demons been dispatched of?" Giyu would ask Shinobu, who was surprised by the former's sudden question. Tanjiro, butting in, would confirm. "They've all been dispatched of," he'd say with a confident smile. "I don't smell a single demon on this mountain," he'd say whilst he was helping Inosuke. Most of the harmed demon slayers were helped by Kakushi, which helped them by carrying them down the mountains for first aid and all that. as Tanjiro followed both Giyu and Shinobu back to the HQ of the Demon Slayer Corps, where they were to hold a Hashira meeting. Shinobu, Giyu, Tanjiro, and Nezuko would be talking with each other on the way to HQ, as Nezuko and Shinobu got really close, with her being so kind to Shinobu. Shinobu would remark that this is the most she had heard Giyu talk, with him being such a keep-to-himself type person. Arriving at the Ubuyashiki mansion, they'd still be talking, with the other Hashira arriving. Some of the Hashira were shocked because of the amount of talking Giyu did, although they find it quite pleasant. Mitsuru would arrive and, as usual, be pretty loud. She'd look around and see Tanjiro as she blushed because he smiled at her. He was handsome and had a strong aura around him, as she became quite silent after that. Pretty much everybody was quiet, with the only ones having a light-hearted conversation being Tanjiro, Nezuko, Giyu, and Shinobu. Well, until Sanemi walked in, as he instantly started yelling at Tanjiro and Nezuko, although this was cut off when Ubuyashiki walked in, as all the Hashira bowed, with Nezuko and Tanjiro still standing, with the other Hashira, which the other Hashira disliked, as the snake Hashira, Obanai, tried to force them to kneel, although he got told to stop by Ubuyashiki. Stand, Ubuyashiki would say, and the Hashira would precisely do that. Tanjiro, Nezuko, if you would please come forth, he'd say with a calm and soothing voice, which the two did. Now, as most of you know, Nezuko has been turned into a demon, although she resisted his blood, and now this might confuse some of you, Ubuyashiki would say as he took a moment to think of the right words. She can still use her demon blood art, and her healing is indeed that of a demon, although she can still walk around in the sun, and wisteria isn't poisonous to her, Ubuyashiki would say. This is because of her human side and probably because of her heritage. Now, this in itself is fine. She has learned the breathing style and has even devoted herself to become part of the Demon Slayer Corps, and for that I am truly grateful, Ubuyashiki would say, giving a short bow. Nezuko is an official member of the Demon Slayer Corps, as she hasn't attacked any human and has actually shown great care for the human slayers around her. Sanemi would hear this and protest, asking if he would be allowed to perform a test, which Ubuyashiki accepted, reluctantly. As Nezuko walked towards Sanemi, he'd cut himself, revealing his mariachi blood. Nezuko, however, would approach him as she put her hand on his wound. See, I told you all demons. However, before he could finish his sentence, his wound would light on fire as it got healed. As he looked at Nezuko, she would pull his cheek. Don't harm yourself. You should take care of your body, she'd say with a light smile. Sanemi didn't say anything as he just backed off and got back in line, as she just turned around and walked back to her brother. However, Tanjiro was just looking at Ubuyashiki, as he looked over at Nezuko and pointed lightly to the man. She nodded as she walked up to Ubuyashiki. The other demon slayers all looked at her whilst questioning what she was about to do. As Tanjiro turned around, he'd look at all of them with a smile. At that moment, Ubuyashiki would catch on fire, much to the horror of the Hashiras, who all got into a stance. However, Tanjiro would raise his hand with a smile. The curse mark on Ubuyashiki's face slowly started to retract from the left back to the right, as most of the mark returned to the right side of his face. As Nezuko was breathing heavily from trying to cure him, she'd eventually pass out, with Tanjiro catching her. I guess she can't cure you completely. At least it should hurt less than before, Tanjiro would say with a smile, as he looked back up at Ubuyashiki, who now only had a mark around his right eye. The man, now being able to see again, smiled. Thank you, truly. He'd say as tears started welling up. The other Hashira, stunned, all bowed to Tanjiro, who was holding Nezuko. However, the boy was slowly walking to Shinobu. Could you take care of my sister, please? Of course, Shinobu would say as she snapped her fingers, as two Kakushi came in and took Nezuko, as Tanjiro walked back to where he was standing before. How about you tell them the rest? Tanjiro would say, looking at Ubuyashiki. You already knew, didn't you? Ubuyashiki would say as he regained his firm look. Yeah, Tanjiro would say, saddened. What do you mean, master? Rengoku would say with a massive smile, happy to see Ubuyashiki in better health. Tanjiro, would you please tell us your last name? Without much more, Tanjiro would speak. My name is Tanjiro Tsujikuni. He'd say which only put one person in real shock, which was Muichiro. Tanjiro is the son of an upper rank demon, specifically upper rank 1, Ubuyashiki would say, keeping his composure. Some of the Hashira were uneasy until Sanemi spoke up. Sir, knowing this, you'd know that we can't have mercy on him, he'd say with an angered look. Ubuyashiki was about to speak, although he got cut off by Tanjiro. Look, I don't really care about your Demon Slayer Corps. Sure, I'll help out if you need my help, but in truth I'm only using the Corps to complete my goal, which is simply to save my father, and destroy Kibutsuji Muzan. Tanjiro would say, releasing an aura that scared even the other Hashira. Muichiro, however, would be enraged, unlike his usual self, which scared the other Hashira. Why wouldn't you want to rescue that traitor? He'd say, pointing at Tanjiro, as Tanjiro turned to the boy. Ubuyashiki would speak. Muichiro, I know how you feel, but... Muichiro would cut off Ubuyashiki as he'd continue slandering Tanjiro's father. He deserves nothing but death, the boy would say as he was about to continue, but in an instant he got kicked by Tanjiro, which none of the Hashira were able to see, as Muichiro was kicked into the outside wall of the mansion. If you dare badmouth my father one more time, I won't have mercy, Tanjiro would say as he gave a death stare to the boy. How dare you, Sanemi and Gyomei would say, as they both rushed at Tanjiro with their weapons drawn, although he'd easily move faster than both of them, knocking them to the ground. I used to work as a mercenary, you know. I've taken human lives before as well. Does that make me a demon? Tanjiro would say with a cold tone. Rengoku would get up as he'd draw his weapon. Tanjiro, however, just looked at him with a death stare. Enough, Ubuyashiki would say, as everybody came to a standstill, as he'd walk up to Tanjiro. As he bowed, he would say, I did not wish for your father to be disrespected. I apologize in the Hashira's stead. We require your help in beating Muzan. That much is obvious to anyone. If you would please help us, he'd say as he bowed down to Tanjiro. I'll help, Tanjiro would say as he kneeled down. Extending his hand to Ubuyashiki, he'd help him back up. I'm sorry for hurting your Hashira, he'd say as he realized what he had done. Gyomei and Sanemi got up as Tanjiro bowed to them. I'm sorry, he'd say with a sorrowful expression. Gyomei would cry at Tanjiro's sincerity as he accepted the apology. Sanemi would just say whatever. Muichiro would get up as he walked up to Tanjiro and bowed. I'm sorry, I lost my cool, as he proceeded to bow to Ubuyashiki as well, who told him it was fine. Kakushi would treat Muichiro as they continued the meeting. They talked about everything Tanjiro knew, and the Hashira talked about everything they knew. Ubuyashiki would be quite delighted at the useful information they had gained as he called the meeting adjourned. All the Hashira were preparing to leave, however they got stopped. Hold on, Tanjiro would say, getting the attention from everyone. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my father compared me to a Hashira. Now I'm certain he meant a Hashira on the level of Gyomei or Sanemi. Now I'll just help you all out a bit. If you're in a dire situation, remember, grip your blade with all your strength, and you'll manage to survive, he'd say as he left with Shinobu, arriving at her mansion by nightfall. As he was allowed to stay there, he went to bed and slept like a newborn baby. As he woke up, he was called. But that story will have to wait for the next part. If you guys enjoyed it, do like the video. The goal will be 60 likes for part 4. And if you are new around here, subscribe. Massive thank you to Myro for the thumbnail again. His link will be in the description. Do check him out. He makes really good what-ifs. Do leave a comment on what you thought about the video. And with that out of the way, I'll see you lovely cups in the next video. My name is the Dragon Lord, and I'm signing out.
Tell me a story.
There was once a pale man with dark hair who was very lonely.
Why was it lonely?
All things must meet this man, so they shunned him.
Did he chase them all?
He took an axe and split himself in two, right down the middle.
So he would always have a friend.
So he would always have